We start in British Columbia, where the port strike is wreaking havoc on Canada's economy. Industry groups estimate about $500 million in goods have been disrupted every day since the strike began, costing around $6 billion. It's estimated that 63,000 shipping containers carrying goods are currently backlogged. And now the federal government is directly intervening. Last night, the Labour Minister ordered a federal mediator to draft a settlement. It was presented to both parties this afternoon, and they now have until 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow to respond, yes or no. Federal Labour Minister Seamus O'Reagan joins me now. Minister, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, David.
You've provided both sides with terms of a settlement. They have until 1:30 Eastern tomorrow. How confident are you that this will be resolved by tomorrow afternoon?
Confident. Look, this is something that they've been at this since April. I've been out here for the past 2 weeks. What is in front of them is not new. This is something that they have been working on themselves. This is their deal. They've worked extremely hard at it. It's just that I made the decision yesterday that the difference between what the union's position and the employer's position, the difference between their positions was not sufficient to allow this work stoppage to continue. The damage to the Canadian economy and to supply chains was too great. And I think that the damage to the relationship between these two parties was starting to fray. And it's very clear that we need these two parties, the union and the employer, to get along. Our national supply chain depends on it. So I made that decision yesterday. They have, as you said, until 10:30 BC time, Pacific time, to get back to me on whether they approve or disapprove. But I am confident that when the members on both sides see the details of these terms of an agreement here, that they will go along with it. I think that it's their deal. What I would characterize this as is a forceful nudge.
Right, but what if the forceful nudge doesn't get it over the finish line? What happens if at 10:30 BC time tomorrow they say no?
I think any way I answer that, to be honest with you, sounds like a threat. So that's not where I'm going to go with this. I am very confident that when the members of both sides see the terms, that they will see the deal that they have created, and that this will end.
But Minister, you can do the math, right? 63,000 shipping containers, $500 million a day, 12 days in. Tomorrow will be day 13. Premier after premier after premier calling for back-to-work legislation. If this forceful nudge doesn't get it done, I mean, isn't that really the only option you have left?
I am very aware of the damage to the Canadian economy. I'm aware of, it's very clear of the damage both to our supply chains and the numbers themselves, to trade, to our national security, I would argue. That's why I made the decision yesterday. That's why I used Section 105.2 of the Canada Labour Code to do this. It's not done very often. I went to both parties very quickly and immediately on the advice of my officials after they spelled it out for me, and we acted immediately. So we've got a 24-hour deadline to approve or disapprove.
Have you had any response from the negotiating parties since you did this? Have they given you any indication of what their reaction is to the move that you've taken?
No, both sides right now are deliberating. They have tonight, and they have until 10:30 a.m. local time tomorrow. But I know that they take it very seriously.
So what was it that changed that allowed you to make this decision? Because the last time we spoke, you said, deals negotiated at the table endure. That's the best way to get a deal. Are we down to one issue here? Are we down to two issues here? Like what percentage of a collective agreement has already been agreed on by the parties, and what's left that you felt needed to be resolved through this action?
It's the sum total of a whole bunch of things that are on the table. Again, none of this would be strange in any way to either party. But it's so close, it just did not warrant, as you said, according to some sources, $500 million a day. That is a huge amount of money. And again, it's not just the damage that it's doing to our economy and to our competitive position globally, it is also the damage it is doing to this relationship. This relationship has to stand. Collective bargaining has to stand. It is a right of workers in this country. So, it's all well and good to be swinging around heavy, blunt instruments. Deals are made through hard work and time. But at some point, me, as the minister, with the powers that I have, I got to make a decision. You know, you on the one hand have got an incredible amount of damage that's being done to the economy. On the other hand, we believe in collective bargaining, not just only for its own sake and because it is a right of workers in this country, but because that's how we will arrive at a long-term, certain, and more stable solution than swinging around government legislation at the drop of a hat. This is hard work. This takes time. It just can't take too much time. And it was taking too much time. That's why I made the decision that I did.
Okay, so just explain this process to me, because I've not covered an issue like this where the federal minister has essentially done this sort of a thing. Have you essentially, through the mediator, put on the table what would constitute a tentative agreement for both sides? And they have to decide, the employers, whether they'll bring it back to all the companies, and the union, whether they'll bring it back to all of their members. That's essentially what is happening here, correct?
Precisely.
Okay, so if they say yay or nay tomorrow, if they say yes tomorrow, let's be positive that this resolves it, does that immediately then end the strike and they go back to work, or does it have to go through a ratification process by both sides that could then delay things? I mean, what happens if you get the answer you're hoping for tomorrow at 10:30 British Columbia time?
Yeah, I'm not gonna get ahead of it. I'm not gonna predetermine the outcome. I mean, this is all happening live and in the moment. What I want right now is an end to this work stoppage, and I want a deal. So I really don't want to get out there with predetermined outcomes or anything that could be alluded to as a threat. This right now is so delicate and so important that we get this right. So, you know, let me just say once again, you know, the terms of settlement that the federal mediators came back to me with and that we gave to the parties 10:30 a.m. this morning, I am confident that when their members see it, they will agree this is a good deal.
Sure, but and my question is not designed to elicit something that can be seen as a threat. I simply want to know what the process would be. If you get a double thumbs up tomorrow, does that mean the strike ends, or does it have to go through the ratification process? How does it work procedurally?
I think procedurally that will be determined, you know, by the union themselves, by the employers. Listen, your questions are more than fair. I don't mean to elude that. It's just that I got to be very careful in my answers, because at the end of the day, this is real life. This is the Canadian economy. These are workers' jobs. I got to get it right.
So what is your sense, Minister, on how quickly the ports could all reopen once this is resolved? I mean, is this what would the ramp-up period be? Because the $500 million a day keeps tolling as long as these things aren't in operation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's why I took the action that I did yesterday, to get that clock started earlier. I mean, I think the Canadians have been patient. I think that, you know, most Canadians understand the importance of the collective bargaining process, and I think, you know, that's not the issue, but it's getting expensive. I mean, I don't need a big clock to tell me that. I know that I think the BC Chamber of Commerce put that out today, and that's fine. It's a healthy reminder for people. Everybody gets this, and it's trying to find that balance where, again, we respect the collective bargaining process and the rights of workers, but at the same time, the Canadians need a deal. As I've always said, and I said on this show the last time, Canadians need a deal.
What do you say to Canadians, business groups, and some premiers and politicians who say you waited too long, even to do this? Well,
I would say that they have arrived at a deal. It's not like these 2 weeks were in vain. They worked extremely hard to arrive at what they have been presented with. It's just that sometimes, you know, you can't see the forest for the trees. And at some point, somebody with a bit of a cool remove, as I think I have, looks at it all and says, there is a deal here. There is a deal. And so I will give you a forceful nudge to focus, because the costs are now too high.